Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we're going to talk about what's happening in Ukraine. There appears to be some kind of activity afoot that leads me to believe that we are looking at the end of one of Volodymyr Zelensky in more ways than one. So let's talk. All right. What we're looking at now is a situation where the evidence is pointing towards something that the U.S. empire has done on many occasions, and that is they have put someone in power. And at some point where the puppet, we'll call the person a puppet, usually a traitor to their country. That's what empire does. It goes into a country, into a region, into an area. It finds a traitor. It finds a greedy little traitor and buys them off and makes them all kind of promises that it's never going to keep and puts them in power, maintains that power. Oftentimes the puppet at some point gets a little big for their britches, shall we say, starts to believe, as the old joke goes, if you play a Doberman on a TV show long enough, if you're a Chihuahua and you play a Doberman on a TV show long enough, you'll think you're a Doberman, but you ain't. You're just a Chihuahua. And at some point, you'll get a reminder that you ain't a Doberman. And so what we're looking at is Volodymyr Zelensky, who recently made a move that led me to believe that he is very concerned about his position. So what happened? Let's put it all together. Let's put the evidence together and see what we find and see where the evidence takes us. Number one, Volodymyr Zelensky apparently has raided these so-called anti-corruption bureaus, SABO, NABU. These are acronyms, right? As an example of how absurd they are. NABU is the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. It was put together by Jim Comey when the United States overthrew the government of Ukraine in 2014. Within a year or so, the FBI. Now, remember, I'm a person who's worked with the FBI, who has said the FBI is not a law enforcement agency. It is an intelligence operation. It is the Gestapo, shall we say. It is the secret police of the United States that does everything from assassinations to illegal wiretaps, hacking, everything that needs to be done that a Gestapo style secret police organization would do. And it is, in fact, the secret police. It is a secret organization. And the reason I say that the FBI is secret is because it tells us that it has one mission, but its mission is far different. It tells us it is a law enforcement agency, and it's here to stop terrorism, and it's here to stop kidnappings, bank robberies, things that are federal crimes, right? Transporting crimes that transport things across state boundaries, things like that. But the fact of the matter is, does it do a little bit of that? Sure, but that's not its mission. Its mission is an internal mechanism that the empire uses to repress dissent and keep an eye on things. However, in 2015, interestingly enough, it was expanded to Ukraine, and they opened the National Anti-Corruption Bureau in Ukraine. The FBI, an intelligence agent, a so-called law enforcement agency for here, opened NABU, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine. Now, what did that really tell us? We can learn something from that. And this is all important stuff to understand where we are now. And that is that what that told us was that the powers at that time viewed Ukraine as effectively the 51st state. They viewed it as part of the United States. They had their internal security agency, their internal secret police in Ukraine. They viewed it as an extension of the United States because it was, in fact, an extension of the United States. It was, in fact, ruled by the United States. Joe Biden attended the cabinet meetings for the people who were supposedly in charge. The United States had to approve anything. They put U.S. citizens in charge of the finances of Ukraine. Ukraine was completely, wholly, and absolutely run by the United States. And all salaries paid by the United States up to this day, including NABU and SABO. So what happens? These National Anti-Corruption Bureau organizations, NABU and SABO, which are fakes, which are just U.S. puppet organizations, suddenly said, we're going to investigate some of the close people around Zelensky for corruption. Now, That in and of itself isn't just the evidence we need to say there's something there's neocon actions afoot, that there's actions afoot to unseat Zelensky. But let's put everything together. Donald Trump signs off on his 50-day thing, right? As I've said, his 50 days were, in 50 days, we need a deal or else. Well, at this point, Trump has kind of backed himself into a corner. But as I have said time and again, Donald Trump can't be backed into a corner, because Donald Trump will simply say 50 days. I didn't say 50. What are you talking about? I don't know anything about a 50 days. The Epstein list doesn't exist. Oh, did I call him Zelensky a dictator? I never said that. Trump will deny something that he said 5 seconds ago. So those neocons who think they have cornered Donald Trump in the 50-day with the 50-day thing are deluding themselves. They don't understand Trump. But let me continue. There's still a window of 50 days here that Donald Trump has created. Within that 50 days, I don't think they'll be successful, but I think Donald Trump intends to do everything he can to get a deal. So what did we get? We get the 50 days. So you think to yourself, okay, let's see what happens over those 50 days. I'll put this. Let's start with this. Oh, what's his name? The guy, Seymour Hersh. Seymour Hersh puts out an article, and I talked about it on this channel. And in that article, he says, Zelensky's done. Trump wants him gone. He wants him out. And I'm thinking, 50 days. And within a couple of days, we hear from Hersh, who now is a mouthpiece for the intelligence agencies, right? So he does that, but then he goes on with a lot of horse crap in there. Yes, the Russians have lost 2 million people. 2 million soldiers. The Russians have lost 2 million soldiers. And, they might as well say 2 billion soldiers. The Russians have lost all their soldiers. They don't even have any soldiers left. And they're out. Oh, by the way, aren't they out of missiles too, and drones? And they're using washing machines, chips for their missiles and stuff like that. I mean, he might as well went with that. But it was full of crap. But within that article, the operative, I would say, element of information was Zelensky's gone. Trump wants him gone. He's going to be gone. And he even in there said, there's 2 ways Zelensky can go. He can go voluntarily, and he used this term, feet first. In other words, as Scott Ritter said, cold face down on the pavement. You know what I'm saying? They can do it the old-fashioned way. So bottom line is, out comes Seymour Hersh. Now, he is a guy that has connections to Intel. And my suspicion with all the crap in Seymour Hersh's article was simply this. The intelligence said, look, we're going to give you this article. We're going to give you this information. But you got to throw some crazy and insane propaganda in there too, or we're not going to give it to you. And he said, all right, give me the crazy, insane propaganda. I'll throw that in there too. So, oh, yes, we're going to get rid of Zelensky, and the Russians lost 200,000 million, billion, 1,000, 100 million soldiers just last week, and they've completely lost. Everything's been a flop. The Russians are on the run. So then why do we get rid of Zelensky if he's winning the war? You read the second part of this article and you say, they're going to get rid of Zelensky, but the Russians have lost millions of soldiers, and that doesn't make sense. But it does if you understand he's being a mouthpiece for the intelligence agency, so he has to butter their bread a little bit by giving them some propaganda room. Okay, start there. So we got Trump saying 50 days. He's got a window. He wants a deal, which I doubt if he gets. We've got Seymour Hersh coming out saying, hey, Zelensky's, right? Then we have Zelensky, who apparently, has a finger in the wind to see which way things are blowing. And he's like, holy crap, they're starting to investigate me and my inner circle. That's a bad sign. So what he does is he gets a law immediately passed in the Rada, which is their parliament, their Congress, whatever you want to call it. He gets a law passed. And the law says NABU and SABO, which are the anti-corruption bureaus, are now completely under him, that he controls them, which means now he's going to stop those investigations against him and his inner circle, because let's face it, they're stealing money by the billions. We all know it. Everybody knows it. In fact, there was an article a few years back where Biden literally sent the head of the CIA over, and basically he says, "Hey, you're stealing more than your fair share. Cut it out." And that was like pretty much in the article. It was pretty clear in the article that they were saying, "Zelensky, you're stealing more than your fair share. So cut it back a little bit. You know, you're stealing 500 million. Couldn't you just steal 200 million? Come on, it's just American money. What do we care? You're a puppet. You're giving us what we want. We're willing to share the wealth, but you got to do what you're told, and don't get too greedy." Anyway, so there we have it. Zelensky tries to shut it down, and something interesting has happened. Something very interesting has happened, and that is protests in the streets all over Kiev. I mean, all over Ukraine, right? Thousands, according to them, thousands of people. And their protests, and some of them are, very closely aligned with people in the U.S. deep state. But they are out there protesting, and they're saying this is authoritarianism. Zelensky is an authoritarian, and you're going to love this. And there's corruption in Ukraine. Dare I say, there's corruption in Ukraine. They just figured that out. They've been living in Ukraine their whole lives, and they finally figured out there's corruption in Ukraine. Whoa, what do you think? There's prostitution at the chicken ranch, although I have no independent knowledge of prostitution at the chicken ranch, right? Yes, there's corruption in Ukraine. The people there have suddenly figured out, and they've taken to the streets, but something even bigger has happened. Watch this. We're gonna do this together. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go. I got faith. I'm gonna go to Google. One of the things I like to do, I like to go to Google and I like to search, because Google is nothing but a CIA operation. It is an intelligence operation. It's a regime change operation. It is nothing but a tool of the US empire, which means if you want to read what the US empire wants, if you want to know what they want to tell you, the message they want to tell you, what they're trying to push, go to Google and start searching, and you will get a CIA intelligence government search right there. So all you got to do is go to Google and search. Now, you ain't going to get legitimate information. You're going to get the propaganda that they want you to see today. So what happens? Here's the first thing I would think. Generally, anything that happens in Ukraine is in a positive light towards Zelensky. He's great. He's wonderful. He's Churchill. He's Abe Lincoln. He's George Washington. He's our guy. He's doing a wonderful job. Anything that opposes him is gone. You're not going to see it. Zelensky's a bad guy. You ain't seeing that if you do a Google search. So let's take a look at Garland's Google search. Now, I didn't search protests in Kiev or anything. I just searched the word Zelensky, nothing else. Let's see what the U.S. government, what the U.S. operatives and intelligence, what the U.S. neocon regime change wants me to see through their Google tool, through their Google intelligence operation, when I search the word Zelensky. What do they want me to see? Let's look together. Bam. Look at this. What is the Google? What do they want me to see? Kiev protests in Ukraine as Zelensky signs bill targeting anti-corruption bodies. Zelensky faces criticism in Ukraine over effort to rein in corruption agencies. Zelensky faces major protests. Every article is about the protests. Look at that. Veto the law on July 2. Ukrainians gathered to protest against the law. Posts on X. Here's the post on X. The vote to undermine Ukraine's most consequential anti-corruption reforms caster. So that's all they're talking about. The Economist, outrage in Ukraine as the government attacks anti-corruption watchdogs. Protest in Ukraine as Zelensky clamps down. Protests break out against Zelensky. Protests flare in Ukraine. Let's see what the Washington Post says. After government curbs corruption, Zelensky faces criticism. Everyone. Zelensky's government takes aim at Ukraine's corruption fighters. Protests break out as Ukraine defangs anti-corruption agency. Zelensky signs law destroying independence of Ukraine's key anti-corruption bodies, right? Every single one of those articles, every article, my dear and fluffy friends, is the same. And all I searched was the word Zelensky. Had you searched the word Zelensky 6 months ago, you'd have saw a picture of an angel. Our dear beloved angel, Volodymyr Zelensky, the wonderful guy, is doing God's work. We truly love Zelensky. Oh, what a wonderful and fantastic human being he is. That's what you would have saw. Now it's that some bitch is a crooked rascal. People are protesting everywhere. In other words, Zelensky is done. He's finished. The only question, as Seymour Hersh said, is how does he go out? Does he walk out? Or will there be a chalk line drawn on the sidewalk somewhere in Kiev? Let me say this. Maybe I'm wrong, but I suspect the latter. And a lot of people take the same position. And I've been taking it for a long time, because for a long time I've been saying, if you know this, watching this channel, you know I've been saying, Kiev, Ukraine can't win. And eventually, at some point, this thing's going to go down. And when it does, here's the problem. And when it does, there's nothing worse than the guy who knows too much. You don't want to be that guy or girl. You don't want to be that person who knows. The one who Bojo came to him and said, hey, shut down those negotiations in Istanbul with Russia. Who met with Biden. He met with Blinken. I've been told that he knew 2 years before the war started that the war was going to start. That he was told, do this, do that. They were preparing for the war to start. They were having meetings on what they were going to do after they started the war. And then there was a overthrow of the government in Russia. And then Putin fell, how they were going to deal with that. That they were having meetings about this thing. This was not some Russia invasion. This was a planned regime change operation. The regime change operation in Ukraine was supposed to lead to a regime change operation in Russia. Simple as that. That was the game. And Volodymyr Zelensky, I'm sure, was given all kinds of promises. In fact, one of the things that I understand that he was promised was that if he would get rid of the agreement that the Ukrainians had signed with the Russians in Istanbul 1 month after the war started, that he wouldn't have any worries, that he would be supported as long as necessary to the bitter end. He would be supported on and on and on from the NATO and the West. Don't worry, we got your back. Now, he believed him like a dummy will. I mean, they overthrew the government of your country. They're overthrowing the government of countries. They're liars and cheaters and thieves. And meanwhile, they were lying to everybody about what they were doing. They were lying about their conversations with you. And you really think that they were going to tell you the truth? You met with them, Volodymyr Zelensky, and you came up with plans and plots and machinations to go after Russia. And then as you met with these neocons, they then went out to the press. They went out to the American people. They went out to the European, the Brits, the Germans, etc. They then went out and lied all about it. They lied. And you watched them. And you knew that you had met with them and that they had talked with you about things. And you knew that they were now going out lying. And you thought they were telling you the truth. They were liars. They were always liars. And you are an expendable asset. And now you are an idiot. You're a fool. You're a traitor to your country. You're a traitor to the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian culture and everything that's Ukrainian. To your family. You're a disgrace to your community. And you will receive what traitors receive. They can't, if they leave you in Ukraine, when this is all said and done, somebody's going to pop you. You're done. They leave you in Ukraine, so you got to leave. But if you leave, you come back. There's a very bad danger. There's a problem, Volodymyr Zelensky. What happens if you decide to talk? What happens if you decide, you know what? I've been betrayed. I'm going to tell the truth what I know about Nord Stream. They came to me and told me they were going to blow Nord Stream. These are the kinds of things I will guarantee you that Volodymyr Zelensky knows. That Volodymyr Zelensky could come out and say, Yeah, when Nord Stream was blown, they told me, look, we got it all rigged up and we're ready to blow it. We'll let you know when it goes. And then when it was blown, they came to him and said, look, we blew Nord Stream, screw the Russians and the Germans too, but we're going to blame it on Ukraine. So just, there's an extra 50 million in it for you. Okay, just keep your mouth shut. We're blaming on Ukrainians. Tell the guys around you, hey man, you're all getting rich. You're getting lots of millions of dollars. Some of you literally billions. So take a little bit of heat for Nord Stream, and we're all good. And you're getting paid well. Everybody's eating here. Let's let this thing go. I will guarantee you that those are the types of conversations that were had with Blinkens and Bidens and the various people in the Biden administration. They did all kind of dirt, and they said, just keep your mouth shut. That they were behind, the CIA was involved in assassination attempts on Putin and this and that. The CIA, the government, that they talked to MI6 and Keir Starmer, and then he was saying, oh yeah, we should go into Russia and try this and try to kill and do that. If he knows, think about it. He probably knows a lot of the tactics that they used. Yeah, here's what we do. We put them in a ship and we take them in here and then we drop them off here. We got operatives here, and here in these cities and that cities. And the operatives then take the drones off and do this in Russia. And then we've got an undercover group in Russia that does that. You think you don't know that kind of stuff? You best believe he does. Can you have him walking around potentially talking, potentially sharing that stuff with the media, writing a book, who knows what? I don't think you can. If you're the CIA, I don't think you can. I think all you can do is say, it's what it is. Like the Joe Pesci and whatever it was it Hoffa? When he basically implied something had to happen to somebody, you know what I'm saying? And he said, it's what it is. And they looked at him. It's what it is. It's what it is. So I guarantee you, Trump, at hours sitting around, we got a problem here with this Zelensky guy. Yeah, he's busting my chops here. Tulsi, this guy, he's a mookie. He's busting my chops. Yeah. Right? He gave him the Godfather stuff. This guy's a mook. He's busting my chops. Yeah. He's busting my chops. Pete, this guy's Zelensky guy. Yeah, he's busting my chops. Yeah. You know the conversation. The Godfather brings him in. Not saying that Trump's in charge of everything, but for the purposes of this, it wouldn't surprise me if he gave the go-ahead. Oh, well, President Trump, what do you think we should do with Zelensky? It's what it is. And they looked at each other. It's what it is. This guy's he's a Zelensky guy. Yeah. He's busting my chops. Yeah. This guy's a mook. It's what it is, President Trump. It's what it is. And off they go. Well, you know the game. We know the operation. What are we going to do, gang? Get Seymour Hersh on the phone. Leak something to him. But make sure that one of the things that is in his article, that there is a potential. Don't say we're going to do it, but just make sure that Seymour Hersh's article reflects the potential that Zelensky could meet an untimely demise. Just make sure that's in there. Alrighty, get Seymour Hersh on the phone. Let him know. Write an article, add some propaganda, and put in there the potential that Zelensky could, shall we say, exit this mortal plane. Zelensky's done. What next? What do we do? Call the State Department. Why? Plan X. Oh, Plan X. You mean Color Revolution protest? You know what Plan X is, idiot. I said Plan X. Oh, okay. Color Revolution. Yeah, Plan X is. Well, let me check the manual. Plan Y, Plan Z. Oh my God, you're right. It's Color Revolution protest. Pallets of bricks or no pallets of bricks? No pallets of bricks. Okay. All righty, there we go. How about pride flags? We're going with pride flags? Nah, let's ixnay with the I'd pray ags play. No pride flags. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do pallets of bricks, get the signs printed up. Now, I tell you what, it would look a little suspicious if we printed the signs. People are starting to get onto that. They're starting to say, man, you guys came up with some really nice signs. They look like they were designed at CIA headquarters. So tell the guys over at CIA headquarters, don't design the flags for this color protest. Say, look, let's get some ink pens and some maybe, paint or whatever, magic markers, whiteboards, whatever. We'll let the people draw them themselves and make sure that they are in Ukrainian. For God's sake, people are getting hip to us. Every time we do a color protest, people are like, why are the signs in English? Because we're painting the signs and we're making them ourselves. Let's not do it this time. Can we, you idiots, get these signs in Ukrainian this time in the right language? Yes, sir. We got a protest. No pallets of bricks, no pallets of bricks, no pallets of bricks. I said, no pallets of bricks, okay? And we want the signs in Ukrainian. Anything else? Nah, that's it, I think. How many people, protesters? I don't know. You're paying them. Look at your budget. What is your protest budget? You're paying the protesters. It's your budget. You figure it out. Can't you do anything? I'm sitting here. I'm trying to talk to an assassin to get him to Kiev to figure out how we're going to do Zelensky. I got to do my job here. Can you possibly get a protest together with the signs in the right language and figure out your budget as to how many protesters you can afford? Yes, sir. Done. One protest coming. How soon do you want us to start? Tomorrow, you idiot. We ain't got a lot of time. We got 50 days. And by my count, we're down to 47 and a half. Get the hell this protest going. Call Google. We don't have to call Google. We got a hotline to Google. Pick up the hotline and tell Google the protests start tomorrow at 8 a.m. And they know. Just tell them it's plan. No, don't tell them anything. Just tell them Kiev Plan X. They know the line. They already know what to print. Kiev Plan X. I want you to write the article about Zelensky, anti-corruption. He's destroying independence. Write that article, fax it out. I want to go to MSNBC, CNN, Fox, all of them. Make sure the social media companies all know anything to do with protests and anything to do with Zelensky and corruption. They're to elevate it to the top level, and that's what everybody's going to see. Okay, great. So we got Plan X. Yes, we got Plan X. And what about Zelensky? I'm working on finding an assassin. Now, one of my options is that a Russian missile could hit him, right? So perhaps we could get somebody, one of our double agents, could send coordinates to the Russians and say, hey, there's a drone strike missile factory at 4th and Elm, which will just happen to give you the location. We'll make sure Zelensky is there at that time. We'll tell him, yes, Zelensky, we're having a meeting at 4th and Elm. When you get to 4th and Elm, get out of the car and you'll see an X on the sidewalk. Stand in the middle of the X. That's where the meeting's going to be. And Zelensky gets out, stands on the middle of the X, and he sees the car he was in speeding off, people running in all directions, screaming, hands in the air. Oh, everybody's running away. He's like, why the hell am I standing on an X? And people are running in all directions, and the air raid sirens are going off. I think foul play may be afoot. So they just give the Russians the coordinates, tell them it's a drone factory. In comes a hypersonic Kinzhal missile at Mach 11, 8, 9, no matter. And Zelensky is a poop stain on the sidewalk at the corner of 4th and Elm. I think that's what we're looking at. I think the Russians are going to kill him. Maybe he'll die in a drone attack. Yes, it was valid. He was standing outside and he saw a drone coming and he threw his body in front of the drone like a heroic leader would do to protect everyone else. And he was blown to smithereens. When in reality, they're just going to take him in the back of a room, some piano wire around and say, see ya. Wouldn't want to be you. Well, where's the body? Well, he was completely disintegrated by a hypersonic missile. Come on, he was hit. A drone and a hypersonic missile at exactly the same time. Did we mention a 3000 Fab 3000 bomb? Yeah, one of those too. Everything hit at the exact spot he was at the exact same time. Nothing exists. There's nothing there but a crater where Zelensky was going to be. And in fact, we're going to name it the Zelensky crater in memorial of Vladimir Zelensky. God rest his soul. Have a nice day. Oh, oddly enough, we already have a volunteer here to take over. We already have some person that's here. And so tell me, new prime minister, quote, president of Ukraine, what would you like to do? I would like to do a deal with the Russians as soon as possible. Deal with Russians. That's what I shall do as soon as possible. People will be like, we're pushing on this person's skin and it appears to be some kind of a synthetic material, perhaps silicone. Hey, wait a minute. Is this an AI dummy? Nah, no. And it looks just like Zelensky, except it has no emotions and it just goes, want to do deal. And somebody keeps yanking a string. Must do deal with Russians. Istanbul too. Must do deal with Russians. My name is Vladimir Zelensky. Smoke comes out of the ears. That's what they're going to do. They're going to come up with a silicone AI puppet. It'll probably be made in China. And it's going to be able to say two things. Must sign deal with Russians. Now, will they get a deal with Russians? I can't see how they can, because I cannot see how they could ever accept the deal on Russian terms. But they're going to try. But in order to try, Vladimir Zelensky has made a Faustian deal. You might have heard that, a deal with the devil. And when you make a deal with the devil, every time, not occasionally, not sometimes, he's going to come for your soul. Every book I've ever read, every story that's ever been told, every movie that's ever been made, the Wishmaster, right? Look at that. That was like the devil going around making deals with people. I'll grant whatever wish you want. And he'd grant a wish. But of course, in return, he gets your soul. What would you like? What is your wildest dream? And the person would say, oh, I want something. And he'd give them what they wanted in the worst possible way, or he'd kill somebody, do something pretty horrible. He was in prison. He's doing all kind of terrible things. He was always smiling with that devilish grin. But in the end, they always got it. Made a deal with the devil. Vladimir Zelensky has made with a deal with the devil, and now the devil is coming for his eternal soul. And his name is Donald Trump, and his name is Pete Hegseth, and his name is on and on and on. Radcliffe. It's time for Zelensky to go. Zelensky, you know too much. There ain't no way out of this. And color protests, come on, that's how this thing started. This is the way it started. Maidan, and now we've got as Jamal Thomas says, Maidan 2.0. Yeah, been a good run, Zelensky. You had a good run. I wonder where the Zelensky Memorial, monument will be put up. It won't be in Kiev, that's for sure. The sad thing is, after all of that, they'll destroy his legacy. He'll go down as a horrible guy. They'll blame. Look, first of all, they got to have somebody to blame. It will all be blamed on Zelensky. Every bit of it. It was all his fault. The dead guy always gets the blame. Goodbye, Zelensky. We barely knew ye. By the way, I want to thank everybody for tuning into this channel. If you can, follow me on Rockfin and Telegram and Rumble and all that kind of stuff. If you can afford it, patreon.com, become a Patreon member. There's also PayPal. You can donate on PayPal. And of course, Buy Me a Coffee is an easy one. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/GarlandNH. I don't know what the hell the H is about, but they stuck it on there. And then you can like buy Garland a coffee. How much? $5. How many? And you can even do monthly, just like Patreon if you want. Of course, there's Cash App, and of course, Substack. Follow me there. Guess what? I got a PO box. So if you want to send me a letter, if you want to send me a card, if you want to send me a book, a magazine, or make a donation, PO Box 32. It's right there. Thanks a lot, everybody. The most important thing you can do is share this on all your social media platforms. I'm out.